You're not missing setups because you're undisciplined. You're missing them because you're waiting for something that doesn't exist. Perfect. Think about it. How many times have you seen your setup forming, felt the conviction building, but then hesitated? Because one indicator wasn't quite aligned, or the volume wasn't exactly what you wanted, or the candle closed 3 pips away from your ideal entry? So you waited and waited until the move happened without you. And then you told yourself, next time, I'll be ready. Next time, I'll catch the perfect one. But here's the truth most traders never accept. There is no perfect setup. There's only probable. And while you're chasing perfect, the market is rewarding those who execute probable. Let's start with why your brain does this. Because it's not random. It's survival instinct turning against you. Your mind was built to seek certainty before action. In the wild, that kept you alive. You didn't run toward the rustling bush until you were certain it wasn't a predator. But trading isn't the wild. The market doesn't reward hesitation. It punishes it. Yet every time you sit down to trade, that ancient wiring kicks in, just one more confirmation. Let me wait for the retest. Maybe I should check the higher time frame again. Each thought feels like prudence, like discipline, like you're being smart, not impulsive. But what you're actually doing is negotiating with fear. You're not waiting for a better setup. You're waiting for the fear to disappear. And it never does. Because perfect isn't a price level or an indicator alignment. It's an emotional state that doesn't exist in real-time trading. Perfect only exists in hindsight. On the chart, where you can see the whole move, drawn out cleanly, with no noise. But when you're in the moment, when money is on the line, when your last 3 trades were losses, perfect becomes a prison, a standard so high that no setup ever qualifies. And while you're raising the bar, the market is moving without you. So what do professional traders do differently? Do they have better setups? Do they see something you don't? Number. They execute when the probability favors them, even when it doesn't feel perfect. Mark Douglas said it best in Trading in the Zone. Anything can happen. Every moment in the market is unique. Pros internalize that. They don't ask, is this the perfect setup? They ask, does this meet my criteria? If yes, execute. If no, wait. But here's the key. Their criteria aren't designed for perfection. They're designed for consistency. A professional trader knows their edge might only win 55% of the time. They don't need perfection. They need repetition. Because edge isn't expressed in one trade. It's expressed over 100 trades. Think of a casino. They don't need to win every hand of blackjack. They just need the odds slightly in their favor, repeated thousands of times. That's where the profit lives. Not in the perfect hand, in the aggregate. But you? You're treating every trade like it has to be the perfect hand. Like each entry has to justify itself in isolation. That's not trading. That's gambling with extra steps. Professional traders don't trade to be right. They trade to execute their process. The setup doesn't have to feel perfect. It just has to meet the rules. And once it does, they pull the trigger. No hesitation, no second guessing, no, let me see one more candle. Because they know. Waiting for perfect is just another way of avoiding the discomfort of uncertainty. And uncertainty is the only constant in trading. Let me show you exactly how waiting for perfect destroys your edge. First, you miss valid setups. The ones that met your criteria but didn't feel quite right. You let them go, thinking you're being disciplined. But discipline isn't perfectionism. Discipline is doing what your system says, even when your emotions say wait. When you skip setups that technically qualified, you're not being selective. You're being fearful. And fear disguised as discipline is still fear. Second, you degrade your entries. Because by the time you finally convince yourself the setup is perfect, the best part of the move is gone. You enter late. You get stopped out on normal volatility. You blame the market for being choppy. But the market didn't change. Your hesitation did. Third, you destroy your sample size. If your edge has a 60% win rate over 100 trades, but you only take 20 trades because you're waiting for perfect, you'll never see your edge express itself. You'll see randomness, and randomness will convince you your system doesn't work. So you'll tweak it, add more filters, make the criteria even stricter, and now you're stuck in a loop. Tighter criteria, fewer trades, more randomness, more tweaking, tighter criteria. You're not improving. You're suffocating your process. Fourth, you train your brain to hesitate. Every time you see a setup and don't take it, you reinforce the neural pathway of inaction. You literally wire your brain to freeze. And the more you practice freezing, the harder it becomes to pull the trigger, even when you finally think you found the perfect one. Because by then, hesitation isn't a choice. It's a reflex. This is why traders who wait for perfect eventually stop trading altogether. Not because they lack discipline, but because they trained themselves to never feel ready. So how do you break this pattern? You stop asking, is this perfect? And start asking, does this meet my rules? That's it. If your setup checks the boxes you defined when you were calm and objective, execute. No committee meetings with your emotions. No, let me just see one more confirmation. Rules met equals trigger pulled. Now I know what you're thinking. But what if I'm wrong? You will be wrong. A lot. If you have a 60% win rate, you're wrong 40% of the time. And that's fine. Because you're not trying to be right every time. You're trying to execute your edge over a statistically significant sample. Here's a framework. If your setup meets 70% of your ideal criteria, and your edge has a positive expectancy over time, that's good enough. Take it. Because good enough, executed consistently, will always outperform perfect. That never happens. Let me say that again. Good enough executed consistently beats perfect that never comes. This is the shift. Amateurs optimize for entry perfection. Professionals optimize for execution consistency. Amateurs want to eliminate uncertainty. Professionals accept it as the cost of playing the game. Amateurs think the market owes them a perfect setup. Professionals know the market owes them nothing. They just show up and execute when probability tilts in their favor. So here's your new standard. Stop waiting for the feeling of certainty. Start executing when your system says go. Your emotions will never feel ready. The fear will always whisper, wait for one more confirmation. But that's not wisdom. That's paralysis. And paralysis isn't protecting you. It's stealing from you. Every setup you skip because it wasn't perfect is a lottery ticket you didn't buy in a game where your odds are better than chance. That's not discipline. That's self-sabotage. Let me leave you with this. Trading is not about flawless entries. It's about consistent execution of imperfect probabilities. The best traders in the world don't wait for perfect. They execute when the odds favor them, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when one indicator's off, even when their last trade was a loss, because they know perfect is a mirage. It looks real from a distance, but the closer you get, the more it disappears. And while you're chasing that mirage, the traders who execute good enough are compounding their edge, trade by trade, week by week, year by year. So stop waiting. Your system doesn't need to be perfect. Your entry doesn't need to feel perfect. It just needs to meet the criteria you set when you weren't emotional. And then execute. Because in the end, perfect is the enemy of profitable. And the market doesn't reward those who wait. It rewards those who act.